ഹലോ എവ്രി വൺ വെൽക്കം ബാക്ക് ടു അവർ ചാനൽ. ഇത് അർമേനിയൻ വൈൻ ഫാക്ടറിയുടെ രണ്ടാമത്തെ എപ്പിസോഡാണ്. അപ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് ഇന്നത്തെ കാഴ്ചകളിലേക്ക് പോകാം. നമ്മുടെ ഗൈഡ് പറയുന്ന എന്താണെന്ന് കേൾക്കാം.
On the left side, on the stands, you can get first-hand information about everything. We are going to speak more details in main exhibition hall. For example, on the first stand, you can see one of the charred grape seeds that archaeologists have found in Aratashen Neolithic settlement. And the radiocarbonate analysis have proven that those seeds date back to the 6th millennium before Christ. And this speaks about the fact that the seeds are 8,000 years old. And they are placed between the wild grape and the domestic one, which speaks about the fact that people who lived in this territory 8,000 years ago, they started growing grapes. No fact that we were making wine, but the fact that we were growing grapes is a fact. Here you can see the world's ancient winery that has ever been found in the territory of Armenia in Biotro region. It's Armenia Cave. It's a touristic place. And in 2011, archaeologists found there this small winery with clay jugs buried into the soil, skins, seeds, and also they have found the world's ancient letter shoe here. It dates back to 4th millennium before Christ. This winery is 6,100 years old. Now let's go forward. Here you can see water worship monuments about which I will tell you more details in the main exhibition hall. Wine serving accessories, Karasham goblets. Here we have the Urartu Kingdom's biggest wine cellar, dating back to the 7th and 6th centuries before Christ. On the right side, you can see oak barrels filled with wine. We are aging here wine. You can here also see different agriculture and viticultural tools. And also the wines of different companies of Armenia. As this is the Wine History Museum of Armenia and not only our company, we have decided to represent the production of other companies as well. Now, dear guests, we are going to travel in time and space, and we will appear in the 9th century before Christ in an Urartu kingdom palace. From here, you can see how our king, Menua first, is presenting the vineyard to this amazing lady whose name is Tadiji. We have got this information from cuneiforms. By the way, here you can see the replica of the cuneiforms. Before we started using letters, our ancestors used such symbols, such cuneiforms. This is a dandy language now. No one speaks it, no one reads, but the specialists, academicians who have studied it, they can read what's here. And it is written that I am King Menua. First, I have founded lots of cities, I have built artificial channels, and I have planted vineyards, which I am presenting to my daughter or wife, Taridi. The symbol that is responsible for the words daughter and wife is the same. So we will never know who she was. She was daughter or wife, but we have got much more important information. We have learned that wine production was flourishing in Urartu Kingdom right at this period. This is the 1st millennium before Christ. People who lived in this territory, Urartians, they were planting lots of vineyards and producing a lot of wine. Now we are going to taste wine from an Urartu Kingdom clay jug, Urartu Kingdom Paras. But the wine is not Urartian, of course. This is a Porto style wine, port wine. The difference between port wine and classical wines is that in case of port wine, we have much more of alcohol. If in case of classical wines, it is from 11 to 14. Here we have 19% of alcohol. Port wine is a dessert wine. It has typical sweetness. We are aging this wine in oak barrels for 3 years. During those 3 years, it's gaining a lot of interesting aromas and tastes. That's why port wine is a dangerous drink because it's easy to drink, it's nice, it's sweet, but we have alcohol there quite a lot. That's why we are serving in small amounts, in such small glasses, and port wine should be drunk like drop by drop and enjoyed. Ladies first.
Thank you. No.
You are not drinking?
No.
Alright, okay. Okay, by the way, this is a very
Yeah, fine.
easy.
He is also. No.
You also not drinking? Okay, you are the driver. Bharat. Yes, not this time, next time. Before drinking, do the nose, check the aromas. Do you like it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's drink for the meeting. Cheers. Welcome to Armenia Wine Company. Welcome to Armenia. Do you like it here?
Yeah. Wonderful.
Is this your first visit to Armenia?
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
You like it? Okay, we can leave the glasses here and go to main exhibition hall. If you want, you can take a view and do it during the tour. So this is the main exhibition hall of our Wine History Museum. We have separated into several sections, and at each part we are discussing a specific topic. The first part is devoted to the geography of Armenia, where the greatest road. If you have noticed, the main exhibition hall is cut in a basalt rock with a depth of 8 meters below. My guests often ask me if this is a real rock or this is just an interior design, but we are in Aragazoton region where soil is very rich in volcanic stones. It's tuff, it's basalt, and this is the real rock. Here you can see the stratigraphy of the soil. This is how the soil in this region looks like, where we grow grapes. It is very rocky, it is very stony. That's why it's very hard for the grape wine to grow here. Quite often people say that Armenians are growing grapes on stones. This is exactly what they mean. But on the one hand, this is quite a big privilege because the minerals that we have in soil, they go to the grape wine, and as a result of that, we are getting very rich harvest and we are making good wines. But on the other hand, it's very hard to do agriculture, viticulture. It's very hard to grow grapes here because when we cut the soil, we face a lot of stones and face rocks. Yes, that's how it is. Now let's pay attention to these exhibits. This is the charred grape seed about which I was telling, the 8,000-year-old grape seed, which has been found in Neolithic site Aratashen. Actually, it looks like an alien.
Yeah.
The face of an alien. Some people say that it looks like the heart. Actually, yes, that's how it is. Next part, here we have wines from endemic Armenian grape variety Armenia. You can do this way to feel the typical aromas of Armenia because it has several aromas. It's the aroma of plum, black pepper, and also chocolate when the wine is aging. We are going to taste wine, so you will feel the aromas right from the glass. This part is devoted to the wine production, to the technologies of wine production. I will invite everyone to this part because now we are going to have a guest from the past. Winemaker will visit us and he will show how he was producing wine. In the medieval times, the place where the wine was produced was called Hanzan in Armenia. The wineries were with roof, without roof, also portable. Here you can see how this young man is sorting grapes. He's picking them, choosing them, putting into the baskets. And then through this window, he's throwing inside. Now he will do this. Yeah, he has put this is the accepting hopper that we saw there, yes. He's picking the grapes and putting inside. Now let's go to that part where you will see how the press machine is working. In our case, it's not a press machine, it's a press person. He's stamping on the grapes. So this is the exact place where the grapes are collected, pressed, and there is a small hole here from where the grape juice was coming to these vessels for fermentation. Fermentation would happen here, and after that, the wine material was moved to clay jugs like this for further aging and further reservation. Of course, those clay jugs are just for decoration, but there you can see real ones. Archaeologists have found, not far from Yerevan, the biggest wine cellar of Urartu kingdom. This is the Menua first king who is presenting the vineyards, like this is that period. And they have found the biggest wine cellar, which is called Teşe Baini, with lots of clay jugs like this. These are the real ones, which has been passed to our museum from History Museum of Armenia. They date back to the 7th and 6th centuries before Christ. This one is very interesting. It's a lip and a neck of a clay jug with cuneiforms. Here you can get information about the size of the clay jugs and how much of wine it took place. To fill one such cellar, Urartians needed to have at least 300 hectares of vineyards to be able to fill it. And plus it was very hard because in Europe, for example, no vineyards are irrigated. During the year, there is so much of rain that it is enough. But in Armenia, it is impossible to grow grapes without artificial irrigation systems. So we needed to build reservoirs, channels, so that we could bring water from mountains down to the vineyards.
You don't have rain here?
We do, but it's not enough. It's not enough. We irrigate the vineyards artificially. We have drop system, and we bring the water from mountains down. Now it's easier, but in the 9th century before Christ, it was hard to organize. Let's go forward. Here we have very interesting exhibits which has to our museum. Here we have interesting exhibits which have been passed to our museum from Matenadaran. This is a moon calendar, moon clock, and a collection. In ancient times, our ancestors, when they were making any decision, they were taking into consideration the moon calendar, the placement of the planets. The connection of people with the galaxy was very strong. Now, we can say that we are going back to the roots, because in the world now there is a tendency, a lot of companies are switching from organic viticulture, organic vineyarding, to biodynamic. If in case of organic, we do not use any chemicals. In case of biodynamic, we calculate all the work in accordance with moon calendar. We calculate what's the best day to do harvesting, what's the best day to do irrigation. So it is a very hard experience. It's a very challenging experience, and we need to go through another certification for this. This is the accepting hopper of an ancient times, the place where the grape was collected, pressed, and from this hole the grape juice would go for fermentation. The next one is the second press. We would put the grape skins, grape seeds here, then another stone was put, and the juice would go from these parts for fermentation. This is a very unique exhibit. This is a stone filter. There were no filters in ancient times, but there was a need to filter the liquid, especially the water from river. So our ancestors made such a unique stone filter. It is made from tufa stone. Tuf is a volcanic stone, and it is like sponge. Sponge. It has pores, so there is no hole here. Nothing at all. And when you put the liquid inside, within several hours, within 8-9 hours, it's being filtered through the pores, yes. And up to this date, there are people who use this, and we even ordered new ones for our restaurant so that our guests could degustate vodka right from the filter, because it's working actually. Here we have an interesting exhibit made from the black clay. In literature, it is called sictor. Sictor differs from the rest of the vessels with a very interesting function. This is the great-grandfather of the modern thermal cup. So when you put wine inside the sictor and put the sictor into the soil, into the water, cold water, it wouldn't change its temperature. It would stay that way throughout the whole evening, and it wouldn't get spoiled. And instead of the wine, one could put their hot liquid and burn a fire inside, because there is an empty place here, and it would be heated and keep the hot temperature throughout the whole evening. Now we will go to the next part, which is devoted to the wine serving accessories, wine tasting. Here you can see clay jugs made from red and black clay. They date back to the second half of fourth millennium before Christ and first half of third millennium before Christ. In the territory of Armenia, archaeologists have found a lot of ritual goblets, ritons. Ritons were made out of different materials, out of animal horns, clay, silver. Here we have samples of clay ritons that date back to the 7th century before Christ. This riton has a shape of a shoe, and this one has a shape of an animal. Below you can see a small hole from where the wine was flooding. Like they were doing not only drinking the wine, but also flooding with wine during different ceremonies. This is 7th century before Christ, but 2 centuries later, in the 5th and 4th centuries, we already have silver ritons. This riton has been found not far from Yerevan, but this is not an Armenian riton because it's not typical to our culture, and probably this one has been imported to Armenia from Assyria. This is a very unique sample. It dates back to the 22nd and 21st centuries before Christ. This is Karashamb ritual goblet. Now we live in 21st century and it dates back to the 21st before Christ. This is the Bronze Age, but the item itself is made from silver. We have many interesting scenes on it. The first line is the scene of a hunt. Below that there is a scene of a party where they are serving wine in vessels. Below that there is a scene of a war and again hunt, like they were hunting, partying and making war. And we can say that nothing has changed in our lives throughout this 4,000 years because people continue hunting, partying and making war, unfortunately. Yeah, here you can see very unique results. This is the clay typical to Sunnic region of Armenia, red clay and black clay. Black clay is very rare, so that's why it was much more expensive than the red one. They are very unique vessels with interesting shapes and interesting ornaments, but this one is very unique because it has a shape of a bottle. It was very hard to make this shape. These are comparatively young exhibits. They date back to the 9th and 20th centuries of our age. It is called wineskin, as the clay jugs were very heavy to carry and there was a need to export wine. People made such wineskins from the goat skin, from goat. So it was light and easy to carry. Here we have a flask dating back to the 2nd and 1st centuries before Christ. It has been found not far from this place where we are now, in the place called Oshakan. This is the Greek historian Xenophon, and when Xenophon would go through Armenia in the 2nd century of our age, he mentions that Armenians were hosting him with beer and wine. And he also tells that Armenians were drinking wine right from the clay jug, using long straws like this, like cocktails. So we can say that culture of cocktail came out at an early stages. And here on the map you can see how we were exporting wines to Babylon through the rivers Tigris and Euphrates. People were making similar boats and filling it with clay jugs with wine, and a donkey, 2 sellers, were exporting wine to Babylon through the flow of the river. They were selling it there and then coming back. This same method was used by Arabs till 1930s. They were making similar boats and calling it gufa. Gufa means basket when translated into English. The left side shows the connection of wine in Christianity, and the right side shows the connection of wine in paganism. Here we have a sample of a dragon stone. We speak about the pagan period when people believed in many gods and many things. They were sure that dragon stones are keeping secure the water springs. They were putting it in high mountainous places near the water spring because they were sure that these dragon stones are keeping them secure and don't let them dry. Before I will introduce the next exhibit, I would like to talk a little bit about funeral ceremonies. Each nation, each country, a specific historical period had their own funeral ceremonies. In ancient Egypt, when the pharaoh would die, they would send with him lots of treasures, slaves, wives. They believed that all of this the pharaoh will need in the next life. So our ancestors were not an exception. In the first millennium before Christ, in Armenia, people were burying people, making such clay jug funerals. When a person was born, there was a clay jug meant for him. The clay jug was used during his life to age wine, but when the person would die, he would be buried in the clay jug with the pose of an embryo, because they believed that after death, the dead one goes back to mother to be reborn again the same way. If you come closer, here you can see a skeleton of a woman. Oh, be careful. You can see a skeleton of a woman who is buried in a clay jug. These are real, and the skeleton and the clay jug have been found in Artashat. They date back to either to the 1st century before Christ or 1st century of our age. This 100 year is we cannot specify. The analysis cannot be like that accurate. When we speak about the death, we always need to remember that life goes on, and that's why we have represented the fallacies here. Again, we speak about very ancient times, about pagan period, when people believed in different things, and they were putting such monuments in every place, and quite often flooding them with wine, so that the year will be flourishing. From here, you can see scenes from the famous movie The Color of Pomegranate, made by world famous Armenian movie maker Sergei Parajanov. Parajanov was making his movies in the style of symbolism and surrealism. That's why it's very hard to understand what is it about. There is a lot of symbols there. But the movie has a connection with wine, and there are many scenes where they are making wine from pomegranates and also from grapes as well. Actually, according to the international law, the only drink that can be called wine should be produced from grapes. But for us Armenians, pomegranate wine is also wine, and we are producing pomegranate wine, and we love it and we drink it a lot. So we can continue. Now we will go forward because there is a lot of interesting things to see yet. Actually, wine is not only part of our culture, but also our religion as well. Now we are in a very historical place between three mountains, Ararat, Aragat, and Ara. And according to the Bible, the first thing that Noah did after the big flood, he landed on Mount Ararat, he made sure that the soil is dry, and he planted the very first grape vine. After that, he made some wine from those grapes, he drank the wine and got drunk. Here we have the Gospel and the first printed Bible in Armenian language. It was printed in 1666 in Amsterdam. Actually, this is the first printed Bible. And here you can see interesting scenes. The scene where Jesus Christ is turning water into wine. This is one of the most famous miracles that he has done. When during the wedding, the wine was finished, it was over, his mother asked him to make some wine, and he turned water into the wine. Actually, there is an idea that a glass of a red good wine is very healthy. This is true, but wine is a very individual drink, and every person needs to know the grape variety that is good for him, and also drink wine in specific amounts, not too much. Wine was used in medicine as well. Here we have a book of medical herbs and another medical manuscript. Here we have different recipes with the usage of wine that our ancestors were using to cure different diseases. For example, white wine, they knew that it is very healthy for vision. Red wine was healthy for blood, and this is actually true. But still, we need to drink wine in small amounts. Yes, every day, just a little bit. Yes, and this part is devoted to epic, wine in epic. As I have mentioned, the only drink that can be called wine should be produced from grapes. But for us, pomegranate wine is also wine, and it is mentioned in our epic, where the heroes of our epic were drinking pomegranate wine with the aging of 7 and 40 years, and it was giving them lots of strength to fight the enemies. This part is a temporary exhibition part. We don't do tours here now because we have no information about these exhibits. But if you want, you can just have a look at the paintings and esquisses that were used in architecture. We have connection with wine and wine selling. We have finished the tour in the museum, but now we are going to the most beautiful part of our winery. We are going to our aging cellars of brandy. We will go this way. So we're going now to aging cellar. In aging cellars, you can do photos, but please without the flash, because here we are aging brandy spirit in oak barrels. Oak barrels have pores; they are like materials, and they breathe. During the year, some amount of spirit goes out of the barrels. This means that air there is very rich in spirit, and if we do photos with flash, it may cause some fire, so it's a little bit dangerous.
നമ്മുടെ അർമേനിയൻ വൈൻ ഫാക്ടറിയുടെ ഒരു എപ്പിസോഡും കൂടെ ബാക്കിയുണ്ട്. അത് നമുക്ക് അടുത്ത വീഡിയോയിൽ കാണാം. അപ്പോൾ താങ്ക്സ് ഫോർ വാച്ചിങ്. ബൈ.